Hey friends, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do a fun Q&A talking about the top 12 questions that I get asked as a registered dietitian nutritionist about nutrition, health, wellness, and dieting. Here on the channel, we talk about a very sustainable, realistic, and gentle approach to nutrition. So if that's not your thing, then this Q&A might not be for you. But if you are ready to ditch the diets for a happy and healthy relationship with food, then definitely stick around for the whole video because I think you're gonna love some of the topics and questions that we're gonna answer here today. All right, so without further ado, let's sip some coffee and get into the Q&A. Okay, so I have my handy dandy laptop here with the Q&A questions. Common question number one that I often get asked as a registered dietitian is, should I avoid carbs? This question can come from a lot of different avenues. Sometimes it's from people who are very healthy and fit and don't have any underlying health conditions. Other times it may be from someone with diabetes or PCOS or any kind of insulin resistance where they might be concerned or have a lot of misinformation read about carbs. I want you to be rest assured that you can have carbohydrates no matter if you are someone who has diabetes, PCOS, or someone who is overall healthy with no health conditions. All categories of people can have carbohydrates and really should have carbohydrates unless there's some really dire reason. The keto diet and all those really low carb diets were actually originally designed for individuals with epilepsy, in which they found that the keto diet had some benefits for reducing epileptic seizures. Other than that, there's no real benefit to avoiding carbs unless, of course, you really just prefer a diet full of proteins and fats. And if you do, that's totally cool, more power to you. But a healthy diet is one that is sustainable and that you can stick to forever, not a fad diet that you can only stick to for a couple months. I would focus less on having no carbs and more on having the right kind of carbs. So have more whole grains, have more fruits, have more veggies. Try to look at your diet and reflect and think of maybe a few tweaks that you can make. So maybe every day for dinner you have white rice and now you change that to having brown rice. To me, that is more sustainable and more healthy than just cutting carbs entirely. All right, on to common question number 2. The next common question I get is, do you recommend detoxes or cleanses? Now, if you've followed the channel for a while now, you probably know my answer to this, but the short answer is no, I don't. The human body is an amazing mechanism, and we have everything that we need within in order to cleanse our body, so to speak, correctly. So we have a liver, we have a pancreas, which does a lot of the detoxing that you hear about. You don't need an outside pill in order to do that. Having a diet that is high in fiber also is really helpful for quote unquote cleansing because it helps with healthy elimination and healthy digestion. So that in turn will help you feel more cleansed. And also fiber does attach to a lot of the extra things in our body, excess cholesterol and stuff like that, and helps you excrete it when you go to the bathroom. I think the human body is such an amazing thing because every little part of it has a function to it, except I guess our appendix, but you know, Dr. Mike will have to explain why that is. Okay, the next common question is, what is the best diet to follow for overall health? So this question is a big one, and I could probably do a whole video on it in itself, but I'll try to give a pretty concise answer for it. A healthy diet is one that has carbs, fat, and protein in it. It's also one that is high in fiber and high in fruits and vegetables and things with antioxidants in them so they can reduce free radicals that cause damage in the body. So that's why you see everywhere that you should have a diet that's high in plant-based foods and just whole foods in general. It's because you're gonna get a lot more nutrients that you need to prevent things like the aging process, not necessarily like your skin and stuff like that, but more so the bodily things that our body does as it ages. It helps kind of mitigate some of those things. So focus on having more whole foods, a balance of all macronutrients, carbs, fat, and protein, plenty of water, plenty of fiber, and plenty of plant-based foods, lean proteins and healthy fats that come from, again, plant-based ingredients like nuts, seeds, and avocado and olive oil and stuff like that. That is where you're going to get a lot of your nutrients from to have the healthiest diet. But maybe I took this question a little bit like off on a tangent. I think it might be asking like, is there one particular style of eating like Mediterranean diet, low carb, or paleo or something like that that is the best diet? In my opinion, I think that the best diet for you is something that's going to be really sustainable. So most likely, if it's something that's trendy, it's not going to be something that you're going to sustain for a lifetime. So I wouldn't really focus on a specific fancy diet, but more so a diet that includes all of the things that I mentioned and finding something that works for you. And that includes foods you love, including foods that are not nutrient dense. That is a part of a healthy diet too, because health is more than just nutrition. It's also about your mental health as well and your physical health. It encompasses so many different aspects that it's not just, okay, am I eating all nutrient dense foods all the time? That's not the only aspect of health. And that's coming from a dietitian. The next common question that I get is, how do I build more muscle without gaining excess body fat? This one is really common, especially in the fitness world, and I work a lot with really active individuals. When we are building muscle, a lot of times where we can run into trouble is when we have to go into the calorie surplus to build muscle. You cannot build muscle without being in some form of a calorie surplus, and you also have to have an adequate amount of protein in your diet, which can sometimes be challenging, especially if you're on a more plant-based diet or vegetarian diet. This can be tough. But maybe the better way to answer this is like, what are some of the common mistakes that I see people making that prevent them from building muscle? I think that the most common thing that I see, especially in women, is that we tend to underfuel or undereat in terms of calories. We're having far too little calories to actually build muscle tone, and making sure that you're fueling with carbs and protein after workouts, because your body needs both of those things to A, prepare you for the next workout, and B, refuel your muscle and glycogen stores. So having enough carbohydrates and enough protein is really, really important. Of course, fats in there as well, but I think that one's the one that we have a little less trouble fitting in versus the carbs and protein piece. You also want to make sure that you're progressively overloading in your workouts, like strength training and stuff like that. I do have some workouts on this channel, and I plan on building out some programs too in the future, so look forward to that. But you want to make sure that whatever workouts you are doing, you're not doing like too easy of weights. And I'm not necessarily saying that you need to like push yourself to an uncomfortable degree, but you do need to challenge your muscles and adding weight over time to really see that result that you want to see in terms of muscle tone. Otherwise, your body gets used to it and you are maybe getting some cardio benefits from it, but you're not gaining muscle. And a lot of times I see the worry of gaining fat when you're gaining muscle. I think that the best thing that you can do is work one-on-one with a dietitian if you are noticing that while you're attempting these healthy habits that I just mentioned, and you notice yourself gaining weight that's not muscle. I think working with a personal trainer and a dietitian, or a dietitian and personal trainer, can be really helpful just to kind of like maybe ease some of your concerns and get you in the right direction with that. And shameless self-plug, I do have a program called the Mindful Muscles Academy that is designed for active individuals, helping you incorporate mindful eating into a fit and active lifestyle so you can fuel muscle and reap the body composition benefits that you want. So if you're interested in that, I think you should definitely check out more about the program below. And I also have a free training called the 5 Secrets to Fuel Your Workouts Better Without Dieting. Totally free, an hour-long training that I think you're gonna love so much and learn a ton from. So check out that in the description below. All right, I'll try to go through some of these a little bit quicker because I know sometimes I can get chatty, but you know, it's a coffee chat today. We're not being too speedy. We're just going at our own pace, okay? The next question is, how do I cut back on sugar, and are sweeteners any better for me? So this is a great question. Definitely one that I think a lot of us have challenges with, is cutting back on sugar. And, you know, I don't want to say that in a way that's like, oh, sugar should be demonized, or sugar is this horrible, horrible thing. Of course, I think everything in moderation is a part of a healthy diet. But I do understand that this can be a really big challenge, especially for those of us who maybe have a really busy lifestyle where you're having more packaged foods and convenience foods than maybe you want to right now. And that's okay. If that's where you're at, trust me, I have been there. I've been a college student, and even now, being an entrepreneur myself and feeling like I'm always doing something, convenience can be something that easily gets prioritized over the whole foods. So what can you do to cut back a little bit on sugar? First of all, I think mindful self-reflection is important here. So one time I remember back in the day, before I was actually a dietitian, but I was going to school to be a dietitian, I was working at Quiznos. Yay me. Those are some really bizarre commercials, by the way. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about in the comments below. But I had a coworker who came to me for some nutrition advice, and they wanted to lose weight and they didn't know what they were doing wrong. And after a little bit of gentle digging, we found out that they were having 6+ of these big gulp cups. Those are like the soda that you get at the convenience store or gas station. I don't know why I wanted to say grocery store, but those big gulps that you get at the gas station, they were having like anywhere from 4 to 6, even more of those a day. And my recommendation was not necessarily to just completely cut that out, because obviously if someone's having 6 big gulps a day, they're not just gonna cold turkey it overnight. My suggestion was to cut that in half, or even just have 4 or 3 instead of 6. And start there, and then talk to me in a couple weeks or a month or so, and then we'll go from there. I was a little eager RD to be at the time. It's examples like that that I want you to apply to your own habits. I don't think that there's any magical pill to just like zap sugar out of your diet. I think it's a little bit of mindfulness and awareness on what you're already consuming, and then think, okay, what's one tiny way that I can make a tweak in my diet that's realistic right now that I can do for the next week or so. And then after that, come back, reassess, and then tweak some more if you need, and so on and so forth. And maybe eventually you get to the point where you don't have any soda, and that's cool. Or maybe you get to the point where you have 1 cup instead of 6. You know, it's things like that that really make the biggest difference in your health. And I know I'm making the example of soda, but it can be anything like that. Focus on that, and I think you're going to be so much better off. And I just went on a huge tangent and didn't answer the sweeteners part of this. I'm going to keep it short for this one, and we can make a whole video on this if you're interested, talking more about this. Actually, I'm going to have a Q&A pretty soon about questions about sugar, so I'll save that for this one. But with artificial sweeteners, I think it's the same kind of deal. Have it in moderation, but if you notice any unwanted symptoms like migraines, or that you're craving sweets a ton more with artificial sweeteners, then I think it's okay to cut back on them and have a real sugar approach. I've found, just in my experience, that I prefer to have real sugar from like honey, stuff like that, versus the artificial stuff, with the exception of stevia. That's my personal preference. We'll talk more about that in another video that I will leave in the description when it is up. All right, get faster at these questions, Katie, get faster. Next common question is fasting healthy? So I do have a full video on intermittent fasting and my thoughts on it, so I will actually keep this one short, and I'll link to that video below this one. But intermittent fasting is not something that I would recommend because I really don't think that it's necessary. Just like anything else, I think intermittent fasting, typically the reason that you see results with it is some form of a calorie deficit. But I find that it can sometimes cause more binge eating and stuff like that, because you are limiting yourself to a specific amount of time to eat food when your body just really doesn't work like that. It doesn't clock in and clock out. You can metabolize food when you eat food. So maybe one thing that you can work on instead of fasting is finding a better schedule with your eating. So eating small, consistent meals throughout the day, and maybe eating from a wider schedule. Like maybe you start eating at 7 a.m. and then you end at 8 p.m. or something like that. But you really don't have to have like a specific restriction on eating past 5 p.m. or not eating until 12 noon or anything like that. It really just isn't helpful for most people. Again, with the exception of if you enjoy it and if you find some benefit from it. But I challenge you to ask yourself, is this going to work for me long term? Next common question is low carb a healthy diet? It's kind of similar to the carb question and similar answer. With a low carb diet, you really run the risk of being deficient in a lot of different vitamins and minerals that are really important for healthy energy, healthy hormones, healthy sleep, and so many other aspects of your health. I don't recommend it for most people unless you truly feel energized by a low carb diet long term and you just prefer it. I think preference is the big thing here. If you like it that way, that's fine. You might need a multivitamin or other ways to get those nutrients in that you're missing. But overall, my answer is no, I would not recommend low carb in terms of nutrient density and healthiness in a diet. Next question is, should I take supplements? So this is a really good one. Another one that I should make a video about to talk more in depth about. My quick answer is that supplements are exactly how it sounds. They are meant to supplement the diet, so they can be really useful for specific categories of people, whether you've been on a diet really long term and you are nutrient deficient in certain areas. Also for hormone health and stuff like that, supplementation I find can be really, really important and serve the purpose that it's intended to serve in that category. And when I mean supplementation, I'm thinking things like protein and vitamins, minerals. There are definitely some studies that are up and coming about different herbal remedies and stuff like that. And the research is starting to look promising for different things, but it really does depend, and you should always check with your doctor and or dietitian to see if a supplement is worth it and if it is high quality. One thing that I like to say is if you can't afford a high quality supplement, you're better off just focusing on putting that money towards healthy foods instead, because, you know, food first if possible, and low quality supplements can really get in some sketchy territory. Let me know in the comment section below if you want me to do a video on supplements. I would really like to go deeper into this topic because it's a really important one. And supplements, just there's way too much to talk about it in this video. Next common question is, do certain foods boost metabolism? This is a great question. All foods to some degree need energy from our body to metabolize. So you could argue that no matter what you eat, in some degree, it causes you to, burn some energy. It's called the thermic effect of food. But do any particular foods cause your metabolism to just skyrocket and shoot up and you're just super fit and get a six-pack just from eating them? No. There are certain foods that have a little bit more of a higher thermic effect than others. So protein burns more when it is metabolized than carbs and fat. And also things like caffeine and capsaicin in peppers that are hot, that causes a little bit of an uptick in your metabolism, but not enough to really make a huge difference. It's probably like a couple calories extra, not anything that's gonna make or break your metabolism. You're better off focusing on building muscle so you can burn more energy at rest than focusing on foods that, quote, burn more fat. All right, we have 3 more questions to go. How are you guys enjoying this video? And tell me in the comment section below, did this trigger any new questions about nutrition or anything that you want to see more in-depth conversation on? And also let me know, do you enjoy this new setup and the coffee chat style look? I'm definitely vibing out. We moved to a new location, same town, still in Colorado, but different location, and we are absolutely loving it. I have my own YouTube room now, and also, you know, we got this expensive outdoor sectional, so I kind of feel very fancy on it. All right, next question is, why is there always a new diet out there? It seems like the rules always change, and I can't keep up. Trust me, as a nutrition professional, I totally feel you. Nutrition science is a funny thing. And science in and of itself is always changing. The nature of science is that we go by the latest evidence-based research and we use that to inform our practice. So while it may feel like things are always changing, and I think they always will come out with new studies and new things to like prove or disprove things, but overall I think the core things tend to stay the same, and I want you to focus in more so on those things than all the ever-changing like, oh, now keto is cool, now low fat is cool, now this is cool. If it's like based on cool factor or like trendy factor, then it's probably not actually based on new studies coming out. It's based on the diet industry profiting off of the latest trend, if that makes sense. Actual nutrition studies are hopefully by nature a little less sensational than the media and what you commonly see on like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and stuff like that. What is the most effective diet to lose weight? So this is slightly different than the question earlier about like what's the overall like just healthy diet. This question is more so focused on specifically weight. So for weight loss, I'm sure you've heard it a million times before, you need a calorie deficit. But I think we really get weight loss wrong when we restrict extremely into these 1,200 calorie diets and, you know, going all out on getting the lowest calorie intake possible. And there's no shame on you if you've been in that position before. I know I definitely was back in the day when I started my nutrition journey and took it like way too far. There's really no shame because that is the media portrayal of what healthy looks like, and it's just not true. What I would say is that the most effective way to lose weight through diet and exercise and healthy habits is by making very small changes and being super consistent with them. And being in a very small calorie deficit, maybe like 250 calories, I'm thinking, and pairing that with regular exercise. This does require you to kind of know your energy needs and stuff like that. And I teach you how to do that in my Mindful Muscles Academy course. And there are different tools online that you can use as well to figure out your calorie needs and then subtract it by 250, see how that lands, and be consistent. Slower weight loss, while less satisfying in the short term, is much better in the long term to sustainability and keeping it off long term and really finding your healthy weight long term. And our last question here is, what do I do if I can't lose weight, even with a huge calorie deficit? This one is definitely a common challenge in those who have been dieting for a really long time. And the reason for this is that dieting can really mess with your metabolism. When you lower your calorie intake, there is a metabolic adaptation that happens to really slow things down because your body isn't really sure when it's going to be fed adequately again. It slows down because it thinks 1,200 calories is all you're going to get for months and months to come. So it wants to learn how to optimize and manage those calories and that energy intake to fuel you, because your adult body needs a lot more than 1,200 calories to function at its best. It can function at 1,200, but just not optimally. And what I would recommend for this, and what I would do with tons of my clients, is a reverse diet. And that is when you slowly start to increase your calories over time. And I mean like small specific changes over a couple weeks, add 50 to 100 calories after a couple weeks, and then add some, and then add some more. I'm building a mini course on this because I think it's such an important topic that I want to reach a lot more people with, because so many people have been on diets and then they struggle with their weight for years and years and decades to come. And so a reverse diet helps you readjust your metabolic rate over time and helps you slowly get back to the normal proportionate calorie needs for someone of your weight, size, gender, genetics, etc., etc. If you want to check out any of the videos that I mentioned, check the description below. Also check the description for my free trainings and my online course, the Mindful Muscles Academy. And if you want to continue hanging out with me here on YouTube, click or tap the screen to head on over to the next video. Bye guys.